All right, we're going to continue this discussion by welcoming Diego Domingo, who's the Director of Member Affairs at the South African Podcasters Guild. Diego, welcome to SA Today. Look, from a podcaster's perspective, what do you say to the issues then of regulation being put up in terms of podcasts as well as other social media platforms where people can, of course, take any information, interpret it however they want to, and just say anything without any consequences?
Firstly, thank you so much for the interview and allowing us to come speak on this topic. And I think the first thing that we'll mention is that we do condemn any forms of hate speech as the South African Podcasters Guild. But in terms of regulation, I don't think we feel that any additional regulation is necessary. And that is purely because there are laws and resources in place already. As Willem has mentioned previously, you can take these people to the equality courts. You can follow those regular processes. And the difference is that we see that people can go on YouTube, they can go on TikTok, they can go on Facebook. All of these platforms are regulated the same way already, and these mechanisms are in place. So that's kind of our standpoint on it, is that we have mechanisms, we have things that can be done. As Minister Mckenzie has taken the Open Chats podcast to court to follow those processes, and we need to have faith in our justice system because our constitution does provide frameworks for this already.
Let's talk about those frameworks, of course, Diego. I mean, most probably a lot of people don't know what these are. Maybe just take us through what is the process of entering into this podcast market.
So I think it's pretty easy to enter into the podcast market itself because, as you mentioned previously, you can pick up a mic, you can start recording, and you can basically publish your episode freely and pretty easily. But in South Africa, we do have the constitution which dictates free speech, and we know that we all have the right to our opinion and free speech, but that is limited by the hate speech laws that we have in place. So you can't just say anything and everything that you want. If it is discriminatory, if it's hurtful to anybody, those individuals can take you to task for that. So we do have to be responsible with what we say, and we do have to follow those legal processes. And as again, Minister Mckenzie has gone to the courts and they filed papers and they've put that in front of the courts. We've got many instances where I think a couple of years ago there was hate speech done by a lady. That lady was also taken to court over a Facebook post and videos that went viral on Facebook. So those same processes can take place. So we absolutely think that people should be held accountable for what they say. But we also do have to factor in that people can start podcasts or start channels because we do have the freedom of speech and freedom of opinion as per our constitution.
You know, Diego, I just want on that point of accountability, maybe talk to us about the Guild and what some of the guidelines that you actually do provide to your members. What are they? Do you actually give them a checklist in that should they become your members, this is, of course, the do's and don'ts when they're functioning in this space?
So we do have those guidelines, and those guidelines are available on our website. So when you sign up, we provide you with a form, and you can go have a look at those guidelines. And those guidelines do include, as I mentioned before, that yes, you do have freedom of speech, but you can be held accountable, and you do need to watch what you say because we act within the frameworks of the constitution and the laws within South Africa. And if you do break those laws, then unfortunately you will be removed as a member, and you won't be associated with the guild anymore. And then legal action can be taken against you for those things. And we are bound by the laws of this country.
And is every podcaster at this stage, Diego, mandated or urged to actually sign up and be part of your guild?
We do, and we are working with it. We've working with the Department of Digital Technology and Communication at the moment. So we do know that there's a white paper out there to enforce this regulation, and we are actively working on engaging in those conversations so that people can sign up, and that there is a body such for podcasters, such as the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. We've got in business, we've got the Cape Chamber of Commerce, for example, in the Western Cape. So we want to be that organization. We encourage podcasters to join, so that we can help them maintain responsibility and accountability for what they say.
And in terms of vetting these podcasters, Diego, how should this happen? I mean, let's talk about long and short term as well in terms of as we look at the solutions pertaining to the podcasters, because it doesn't seem like there's much of a movement specifically from a government front. Because as you say, this question actually kept coming up in that dialogue where they were talking about whether or not to regulate social media. And that notion of, but we have free speech, actually kept coming up. So I was just asking, William, how do we balance free speech and then also giving out or discerning misleading information or disinformation?
So I think that's where us as a body, as the South African Podcasters Guild, comes into play. Because, like I said, I don't think we need more regulation, but we need a body such as us and like the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, where we can handle these complaints, where people can send in these things. And because ultimately there are hundreds of podcasts out there. We've got a membership base of over 400 podcasters who release episodes weekly. So it becomes a lot for a small individual or an organization to actually monitor all of those. But if we have the community and out there that can actually regulate or help us regulate by filing in these complaints and having people adhere to these standards, and I think that'll go a long way into making sure that these regulations are maintained and that we can hold people to account.
Absolutely. I think we need to start looking at this route of accountability. Diego, thank you so much for that much insightful conversation there. Mr. Diego Domingo, there is the Director of Member Affairs at the South African Podcasters Guild.